This happened a few weeks ago. I was 32, working as a freelance journalist. I wanted to write about the recent spike in gang violence in my city. I had seen crime before, but it felt different this time. I parked my car outside a bar known for trouble. Graffiti covered the walls. It smelled like old beer and smoke. I can't shake the feeling that I've never stopped thinking about it. I set up my recording device on the table outside. The air was chilly. I looked around, hoping to find someone willing to talk. That's when I heard laughter, nervous and awkward. I turned to see a group nearby. They were young, maybe in their 20s, but something felt off. I approached them, trying to lighten the mood. As soon as they saw me, they fell silent. Their eyes darted from each other to the ground. I felt a weight in the air like I had intruded on something private. After that day, things got strange. I started receiving anonymous messages. My phone buzzed with whispers from the past. I tried to brush it off, but each ping sent chills down my spine. I began noticing figures lurking in the shadows. My heart raced when I passed alleyways, sure someone was watching me. I told myself maybe I was imagining it, but I knew deep down there was something real. Days turned into weeks. The stories I collected from former gang members grew darker. They spoke about violence, betrayal, and guilt, as if they were still living it. They'd glance over their shoulders while talking, as if they expected someone to jump out at any moment. I found a man named Leo. He told me about a friend he lost. He spoke quietly, fearing the words might conjure the past. I listened, but part of me thought he was still part of it. The way he looked around made me uneasy. One evening I decided to visit the bar again. The streets were dim. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows. I approached the door and stepped inside. The air felt heavy. I thought maybe I'd catch someone new to talk to, maybe get more stories. I scanned the room and felt a familiar sense of being watched. Suddenly I heard my name, a whisper. My heart dropped. I turned, but nobody was there. It felt cold. Then I spotted a figure in the corner. It seemed familiar. Could it be Leo? I approached hesitantly, but as I got closer, he vanished into the darkness. I stood frozen. Had I imagined it? As I turned around, someone grabbed my shoulder. I spun back. A guy stared at me, eyes hard and piercing. "Why are you asking questions you don't want answered?" he said. Suddenly the laughter started again from the same group outside. This time it felt sinister. They weren't laughing with me, they were laughing at me. I stumbled back, the walls closing in. Then the guy leaned in closer and asked, "Do you really want the truth?" My breath caught in my throat. What had I gotten myself into? I hesitated, unsure of how to respond to the guy's question. I'm just trying to understand," I managed to say, even though my voice trembled. His eyes narrowed, and I felt the weight of his scrutiny. It was as if he could see right through me, dissecting my intentions. "Understanding? Or do you want a story to sell?" he asked, his tone dripping with disdain. He stepped back, crossing his arms, and the laughter outside became a low hum in the background. I felt a rush of anxiety, knowing I had crossed into dangerous territory. Before I could think of a retort, he leaned in again. "Listen, if you're here for truth, you need to know there are ways to get it. But be careful, because truth comes at a cost." His words sent chills down my spine. I glanced around the bar, noting the others who seemed locked in their own worlds, not caring about our conversation. I felt isolated, as if a spotlight had turned on us, casting shadows on my every move. "Who are you?" I finally asked, trying to regain some control. "What do you know about Leo?" The man smirked, revealing a hint of amusement, but his eyes were steely. "Leo, you think he's the one to trust in a game like this? You're playing with fire, my friend." Before I could respond, he stepped away, disappearing into the crowd. I was at a loss, unsure if I should follow him or retreat out of the bar. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but the need to uncover the truth pushed me forward. I fished my phone from my pocket and glanced at the screen. An unmarked message popped up. "You should watch your back." My heart raced. There it was again, that feeling of being hunted. Deciding I needed answers, I pushed through the bar and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like an awakening slap. The group of young people had dispersed, leaving only that same laughter echoing in the distance. I felt a tug in my chest, a pull toward where they had gone. As I turned a corner, I caught a glimpse of them again by a flickering street lamp. They were whispering among themselves, and just as I approached, one of them caught my eye. It was a girl, her gaze locked on me with an intensity that made me stumble. Before I could react, she pointed, "You need to leave now." I hesitated, staring at her in confusion. "Why?" But the group tightened their circle, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "They know you're here. You've stirred up something you can't handle." The seriousness in her tone sent an ice-cold jolt through me. I turned, heart pounding, suddenly aware of shadows moving in the alley behind me. This time, the chill wasn't just in the air. It was a palpable fear creeping into every fiber of my being. In my gut, I knew I was well past the point of no return and trouble was right on my heels. As I took a step back, the group's warning echoed in my mind. Then everything went dark. I woke up on the cold ground, the gritty pavement biting into my skin. Confusion swirled in my mind as I blinked against the glaring streetlight above. I sat up slowly, my heart racing. The laughter from the bar seemed like a ghost now, quickly fading into the distance. Panic clawed at me. What had happened? I scrambled to my feet, my breath hitching as I glanced around. I was alone. The alley was deserted, shadows dancing along the walls like phantoms. My phone vibrated violently in my pocket. I pulled it out, praying for clarity amid the chaos. The notification screen flashed a message. "You shouldn't have stayed." I froze, the weight of that simple sentence sinking in. Had someone been watching me? Had I crossed a line I shouldn't have? I shoved my phone away and forced myself to move, looking for an exit. I needed to find the girl, the one who had warned me. Backing away from the mouth of the alley, I heard distant footsteps. My gut twisted at the sound. I peeked around the corner, careful to stay hidden. Two men appeared, their faces shadowed, leaning against a building, whispering in low tones. They exuded a sense of danger that made my skin crawl. One of them caught my sight, turning his head sharply. My instincts screamed at me to run, and I ducked back into the shadows, praying they hadn't seen me. I could hear them now, their hushed voices carrying snippets of conversation. "He's too curious," one said. "We can't let him dig any deeper." I gripped the wall, panic pulsing through me. They were talking about me. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. What was Leo involved in? Why did it matter that I was here? As the men stepped closer, I crouched lower, my heart thumping loudly in my ears. Suddenly I recalled the guy from the bar and his warning about the cost of truth. What had I gotten myself into? Just then, a sound broke through the tension. Glass shattering nearby sent a shockwave of fear through me. The men straightened, their attention diverted. I seized the opportunity, slipping further into the shadows, praying I wouldn't make a sound. Then everything fell silent, the night air heavy with anticipation. Without thinking, I continued deeper into the alley, every instinct screaming to get away. When I finally turned to glance back, the men were gone. I paused, chest heaving, still uncertain of my next move. My thoughts spun as I leaned against the damp wall, breathing in the stale air. That's when I saw it. A glimmer in the gutter. Something metallic caught the light. I bent down, my heart racing, and picked up a small keychain. Attached was a silver key engraved with the initials LM. Panic filled my throat. What did it mean? I pocketed the key, realization dawning. I needed to find Leo and confront him. Did he leave this? Or had someone planted it as a trap? Just then, a noise behind me jolted my focus. Someone was approaching. I spun around, adrenaline surging through me, and the feeling was unmistakable. Someone was on my trail again. I crouched lower, holding my breath as I strained to hear who was coming. My heart raced again, pounding hard against my ribs. The footsteps grew louder, echoing off the alley's damp walls. I could see a silhouette emerging from the shadows. It was a figure I didn't recognize, tall and menacing. My mind scrambled through potential escape routes. The alley was tight. My only option was to slip into another passage. Just then, the figure paused and turned, illuminated by the glow of the streetlight. My pulse quickened. It was Leo. "Hey," he called, voice echoing oddly in the stillness. I didn't respond, unsure if this was a trap. I edged back, feeling the chill of the evening tighten my skin. "Are you okay?" "Why did you leave me?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The words came out harsher than I intended. "I didn't think you'd follow," he said, his brow furrowing. "You don't understand the danger you're in." "Then tell me," I shot back, taking a cautious step toward him. Leo glanced over his shoulder as if expecting someone else. "We need to get out of here. They're looking for you." My breath quickened again. "Who?" "The guys from the bar." "Yes, and others. You shouldn't have come. I told you to leave." "Why does it matter? What's going on?" I pressed, my fear mixing with fiery anger. "I didn't want you caught up in this mess," he replied, his voice urgent. "This place, it's not what you think. Those guys, they want to keep their secrets buried, and you're looking too closely." "Secrets?" I asked, suddenly feeling the gravity of his words. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the sound of running footsteps startled us both. Leo's eyes widened. "We have to move now!" He grabbed my arm, yanking me deeper into the alley. "Where are we going?" I panicked, struggling to keep up with his long strides. "Anywhere but here," he said, glancing back over his shoulder. We weaved through the maze of alleys, the narrow passageways bending and twisting. I felt the weight of the key in my pocket, a reminder of the mystery that was pulling me deeper into this chaos. Then I remembered the message on my phone. "Leo, what's the deal with LM?" I asked breathlessly. He hesitated, his pace faltering. "Those initials. We shouldn't be talking about this here. Just trust me. I know a place where we can talk safely." And then it hit me, the urgency in his tone. It wasn't just urgency, it was fear. Something ugly lurked behind this situation. Suddenly a loud crash resonated from the street behind us. A streetlight flickered and shadows grew longer. Leo pulled me further into the alley, but before we could round the corner, a figure stepped into our path. The moment stretched, and I could feel my chest tightening. Leo immediately changed his stance, positioning himself protectively in front of me. "Who are you?" he demanded. I squinted at the figure. It was one of the men from earlier. The same sense of danger flooded back. "Time's up," he said, smirking. "We've been waiting for you." Panic surged through me as I realized I might not make it out of this alive. The figure stepped forward, a sinister smile stretching across his face. Fear gripped me as I felt the distance between us shrink. "You didn't think you could just run away, did you?" he taunted, each word dripping with malice. I could see the glint of something sharp in his hand. A knife, I realized. I took a step back, pressing myself against the wall, heart hammering in my chest. "Leo," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't take his eyes off the man. "We're not going anywhere with you," Leo snapped, trying to sound braver than he looked, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. "Is that so?" The man chuckled darkly, looking thoroughly entertained. "You're in no position to refuse." Without warning, more footsteps echoed from behind. I turned, panic rising in my throat. Two more figures emerged, flanking the first like wolves closing in on prey. "Leo, what do we do?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Stick close to me," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "We'll fight our way out if we have to." "I don't want to fight," I replied, my stomach churning at the thought. The leader waved his knife with a flourish. "No need for that. Just make this easy, and we can avoid any bloodshed." "Easy?" Leo shot back. "You think we'd hand ourselves over to you just like that?" It was a standoff, and the weight of their intent loomed over us like a dark cloud. My heart raced, and I felt every muscle in my body tense. I had no idea what Leo had pulled me into, but it was clear these men operated on a different level of ruthlessness. "Enough games," the leader spat, stepping closer. "We need the girl. Hand her over and I'll let you walk away." My breath hitched. "Why me?" "Because you're poking around where you don't belong. That kind of curiosity has consequences." His eyes narrowed, and I knew he was waiting for Leo's response. Just then, I remembered the key in my pocket again. What if I could use that? I felt its cool metal against my skin, but I had no plan for it, just a desperation. "I'm not going anywhere," I blurted out. The words surprised me, but they felt right. "What did you say?" the leader sneered, taken aback by my defiance. Leo leaned in, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "You heard her, we're not afraid of you." But that wasn't entirely true. Every fiber in me wanted to flee, yet I knew we were running out of options. Suddenly, I felt it, something behind me shifting. I turned to look, but before I could process what it was, the alley behind me erupted with noise. A group of people appeared, their silhouettes rushing towards us. "Now!" Leo shouted, pushing me to the side. Everything spiraled into chaos. The leader shouted orders, and my heart raced as I braced myself for whatever was coming next. Then I saw it, a flash of light reflected off a metal surface, another knife, but this time glinting under the streetlight like a signal. "Run!" Leo screamed just as the first blow was exchanged. Instinct took over. I didn't look back, sprinting into the unknown, adrenaline driving me forward. But as I ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, in ways I couldn't begin to comprehend. I tore down the alley, my legs pumping as if they were being pulled by an unseen force. I could hear the chaos behind me, the shouts, the scuffle of feet, and the clash of metal. My heart raced not just from fear, but from the urgency of the moment. I glanced over my shoulder, catching a glimpse of Leo struggling against one of the men. "Hold on!" I shouted, my voice barely breaking through the noise. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I didn't know how many were chasing us, and I couldn't afford to look back any longer. The alley opened up, leading to a wider street. I veered left, desperately searching for an escape route. My thoughts scrambled. Where was I supposed to go? I spotted a doorway a few yards ahead. A small cafe, its lights on, and a flickering sign on the window. Hope surged through me. I rushed toward it and pushed through the door, barely making it inside before slamming it shut behind me. I leaned against the wood, panting, trying to gather my thoughts. The smell of coffee mingled with something sweet, but I didn't care. I scanned the dimly lit room, searching for any way to hide or find help. The cafe was nearly empty, a couple of patrons occupied in their own world. Blissfully unaware of the chaos outside, I spotted a back exit to my left. My instincts screamed that I needed to keep moving, not stop to catch my breath. But then Leo burst through the door, looking wild and desperate. He slammed it shut, locking it behind him. "Did they follow?" I asked, breathless. "I don't know," he panted, his eyes darting to the windows. "We need to get out of here." He looked disheveled, and I could see a few scratches on his face. Panic washed over me. "What if they find us here? What do we do?" "Just stay quiet for a moment," he replied, scanning the cafe for exits. I watched him wrestle with the reality of our situation. There was no sign of the men, but I couldn't shake off the fear that they would come bursting through the door at any second. My mind raced with questions. Who were those men? What did they want with me? Why do they need me, Leo? It suddenly felt like the question that hung over us, thick and suffocating. "I don't know," he replied, frustration in his voice. "But we need to find out." He stepped toward the exit, peering through the small window. For a moment I thought I heard a voice, a familiar one. "Please don't engage," I whispered. "We don't know how many of them are out there." But Leo was already pushing the door open, stepping into the shadows of the alley outside, with a determination that sent shivers down my spine. "Stay here," he hissed, but I couldn't just stand by. That's when I noticed it. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. A figure darted past the cafe window. I instinctively reached for the key hidden in my pocket, the one I had almost forgotten amidst the chaos. "Leo." He turned back just as the streetlight flickered above us, casting a harsh glow across the empty street. I didn't mean to scream, but fear took over. I was beginning to piece together the puzzle, and I knew that whatever was happening, it was worse than I had imagined. Before I could process it, I saw the man from earlier step into view, his eyes locked onto mine. "Found you," he called softly, a chilling grin spreading across his face. The door was still open, the shadows of the alley beckoning. Time stood still as realization set in. There was no escape, only confrontation. This was just the beginning. The chill in the air settled around me as the man stepped closer, his grin growing wider. My heart pounded in my chest, every instinct screaming for me to run. But where could I go? The cafe felt like a cage now, and my mind raced to consider our options. "I told you to stay put," Leo said, his voice low as he positioned himself between me and the man. "Get out of the way," the man sneered, glancing at Leo with a dismissive look. His eyes, cold and calculating, flicked briefly to me. "She's coming with me." "Like hell she is," Leo replied. I could hear the tension in his voice, the resolve. He was trying to shield me, but I felt the odds shifting. "Do you really think you can protect her? You're out of your depth." The man straightened up, the flickering lights catching the edges of his face. He looked ready to pounce, and I could see the muscles in his arms tense. "Tell me what you want with her," Leo demanded, a fire igniting in his eyes. The man chuckled, but it was devoid of humor. "What's happening here is bigger than you, bigger than both of us." He stepped forward again, and I felt my body instinctively lean back, pulling Leo with me. Just then, the door behind the counter swung open, startling the few patrons inside. A small woman in a white apron stepped out with a confused look on her face. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice trembling as she caught sight of the man. "Get back inside," he growled, and she hesitated before retreating, her frightened eyes darting between us. That moment of distraction worked for us, though. I grabbed Leo's arm. "We need to get out of here now." Without waiting for a response, I rushed toward the back exit. The anticipation of escape surged through me, but before we could make it, I heard a thud as the man slammed his palm on the counter. "You can't outrun this!" I hurled myself through the door, pulling Leo along with me into the alley. The night air hit me like a slap, and I quickly scanned our surroundings. There had to be a way out. I could hear the distant roar of city traffic, and behind me, the cafe door banged against the wall as the man charged out after us. "Go!" I yelled, my voice filled with urgency as I dragged Leo toward the street. We raced forward, not knowing where we were heading, just hoping to find safety. Shadows danced around me, and adrenaline propelled my legs faster than I thought possible. Then the unexpected happened. I stumbled over something on the ground, a small backpack partially hidden in the shadows. I hardly had time to think, but I reached down and snatched it up. I didn't know who it belonged to, but there was no time to waste. "Keep moving," Leo shouted, glancing back just as the figure emerged from the alley's mouth. The man was relentless, and every second counted. What if this was a trap? What if it was dangerous? The thought flitted through my mind, but I couldn't stop now. I had to know what was inside the bag. As we turned a corner, I finally broke the clasp and the zipper loosened. Inside, I found several small pieces of paper, each covered in scrawled notes. My pulse quickened. Was this information? But there was no time to inspect it now. I shoved it back in and looked at Leo. "Which way?" I asked, panic swirling around us like a storm. "That way," he pointed to a dimly lit street ahead. I nodded and we sprinted toward the uncertainty, hoping we could outrun whatever horror was trailing behind us. But then the sound of footsteps grew louder. Someone was close, and I could feel that we were running out of time. We rounded the corner, breathless and desperate. The street ahead was dimly lit, shadows creeping along the walls. I could feel the weight of the backpack against my hip. Whatever was in it could be the key to understanding what was happening, but right now, the only thing that mattered was getting away. Leo pulled ahead, his determination clear. "There's a subway entrance up there," he shouted, pointing toward a small stairway leading down. I didn't need to be told twice. We sprinted toward the entrance. My lungs burned, and I could feel my legs beginning to tire, but the threat behind us pushed me on. Just as we reached the stairs, the man appeared again, moving with an unsettling ease. He hadn't expected us to be so quick. "You think you're safe down there?" he called out, his voice echoing against the brick walls. "This isn't over." Adrenaline surged through me. I pushed Leo ahead of me, urging him to go. We bolted down the stairs, my heart racing as we hit the platform. The faint glow of the fluorescent lights buzzed above us, illuminating the empty station. "Is there a train coming?" I gasped, my eyes scanning the tracks. Leo didn't answer right away. He pulled out his phone, but it slid from his hands as he fumbled. Panic rose as I glanced back, expecting the worst. "Leo," I hissed, urging him to hurry. He bent down to grab it. "We need to find out where we are," he said, his face pale as he looked at the screen. There could be a backup route. But I could feel the urgency of the moment. Every second felt like it stretched thin. "We don't have time for that." Then I remembered the backpack. I unzipped it again and pulled out the papers. "Wait, maybe this can help us." Leo's eyes darted between me and the papers. "What is it?" "It looks like notes, plans or something. Maybe they're related to him." I flipped through the pages, my fingers trembling. Some sketches, words scribbled in a hurried hand. A couple of names and addresses jumped out at me, but what caught my attention the most was a phrase that repeated, "Find her before it's too late." I froze. The implications hung heavy in the air, my stomach twisting. Did they already know I was involved? Suddenly, the echoes of footsteps hit my ears again. No more time to ponder. "Leo, we have to go, now!" He nodded, looking scared but resolute. We moved toward the nearest exit, darting to the other side of the platform just as a train rumbled into view. The brakes screeched and the doors slid open. Before we could even think, we leaped inside. The moment the doors shut behind us, a shadow loomed at the end of the platform. But inside the train, everything went dark. The darkness didn't last long. Emergency lights flickered on, casting a dim glow around us. My heart hammered as I took a quick look around. The train was nearly empty, save for a few scattered seats. Leo and I huddled together, breathing ragged. "We need to think," Leo whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the train. "What do we do next?" I stared at the papers still clutched in my hand. "These notes are about someone, or something. What if they're trying to find me?" "Then we have to figure out what they want," he replied, looking down the empty aisle as if expecting the man to come barging through. I flipped through the papers again, searching for anything that might give us a clue. There were sketches that looked like construction plans and a few addresses in the city. But what stood out was a crude drawing of a woman. She was outlined in black, her features indistinct. It felt like staring into a dark mirror, oddly familiar yet impossible to place. "Who is she?" I murmured, mostly to myself. Leo leaned in closer. "I don't know, but we need answers. Maybe she's the key." Just then, the train jolted. The lights flickered more violently, and I braced myself against the pole for support. My stomach lurched. "Did you feel that?" Leo nodded. "It's probably just the tracks, but we should keep an eye out." As the train rushed forward, a sense of apprehension settled over us. And then, a loud crash pierced through the sound of the train. Leo and I exchanged fearful glances. "What was that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I don't know," he said, his expression shifting to worry. "But I think—" The train lurched again, and a shudder ran through the entire carriage. Before I could react, the lights blinked once more and then went out completely, plunging us into total darkness. Panic surged through me. I could hear my own breath quickening as I fought to remain calm. "Leo? Can you see anything?" "No. I think we're stopped." "Hurry," I whispered, my pulse racing as I pulled out my phone. The weak light barely illuminated the messages I had received earlier. Something caught my eye. An unknown message from a number I didn't recognize. "Leo, look." I pointed the phone toward the screen. The darkness felt oppressive, but I could make out the words. "Don't look back." It sent a chill down my spine. Why were they watching us? What did they want? Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the train, slow and deliberate. "Someone's coming," Leo said, his voice low and tense. My hands shook as I turned off my phone's light, plunging us into further darkness, my instincts screaming for silence. "What do we do?" But before he could respond, a voice broke through the suffocating dark. "You're not getting away that easily, you know." I held my breath, fear flooding my senses. I recognized that voice from earlier. The man was here. Then I remembered the papers. I couldn't let him find them. My heart raced as I tucked them deep into my jacket. I needed a plan, but time was running out. The train felt smaller, tighter, and the darkness closed in as I waited for the next move, both terrified and determined to survive. The sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing down the narrow corridor of the train. My heartbeat thrummed in my ears, drowning out everything else. I glanced at Leo, whose expression mirrored my own bewilderment and fear. "We need to stay quiet," I whispered, scrambling to find a place to hide among the seats. I hunched down, pressing myself against the cool metal frame. The weight of the backpack felt heavier than ever, and I was terrified of what might happen if he found it. Suddenly, the train jolted again. The lights flickered back to life, casting an eerie glow over the cabin. The man was close now, and I could see his shadow moving toward us. He had that same menacing grin, the kind that sent chills crawling up my spine. "Where are you, sweet girl?" His voice dripped with mockery, sending waves of dread crashing over me. I felt frozen, unable to respond, but I forced myself to resist the overwhelming urge to scream. Instead, I remained perfectly still, hoping he wouldn't notice us in the dwindling faint light. The man stepped into view, scanning the empty seats. "You can only hide for so long. Your little game is over." His words sent terror spiraling through me. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, urging me to fight or flee. If I could just get that keychain out and spark a distraction, it could buy us enough time to escape. But then, Leo's hand gripped my arm gently, grounding me. "Wait," he whispered urgently. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, the train shuddered again, this time accompanied by a bone-rattling screech. "God, what is happening?" I whispered, my eyes darting to the windows, half hoping to see lights of a passing city or the figures of rescuers. Instead, darkness loomed outside, as pervasive as the fear creeping in my gut. The man outside banged on the door to our car. "You think a little darkness can save you? You can't hide forever. I know you're in here." Leo pulled me further down the row, closer to the rear. "This isn't good. He knows we're here," he said, his voice barely containing panic. I started, but before I could finish, the door jerked open with a loud crash. The man stood framed in the doorway, silhouetted against the rest of the dimly lit cabin. I held my breath, the air thick with tension. "Let's make this easy," he said, stepping forward, his eyes gleaming with predatory intent. "Just hand over the papers and that little key you've got there, and I assure you, it won't end badly for you." "I'm not giving you anything," I shouted, surprising even myself with the conviction of my voice. Part of me thought I'd just signed our death warrant, but I couldn't let him intimidate me. He laughed, a low, chilling sound. "Brave but foolish. You don't know the game you're playing." Before I could retort, the train lurched violently, throwing me off balance. I stumbled back, but Leo caught me, steadying us both. The sudden motion sent the man reeling slightly. In that split second of chaos, the lights flickered wildly again before finally plunging us into absolute darkness once more. Leo seized the moment. "Run!" he urged, and without thought we bolted down the aisle toward the nearest exit. I could hear him following, footsteps pounding behind us as we bounded toward the doors. "Hurry!" I yelled, pushing against the heavy doors. They swung open wildly, letting in a gust of night air mixed with the distant sounds of the city. We didn't stop. We threw ourselves into the cool night, limbs running on pure instinct. We stumbled onto the platform, breathing hard, but no sooner had we escaped than the train lurched ominously again. I didn't dare look back, just ran alongside Leo, our breaths mingled with fear and relief. "Now what?" I gasped, glancing around frantically for a place to hide. The station was eerily quiet, shadows bouncing, but I could feel eyes watching us, waiting. "Let's get out of sight," Leo urged. But suddenly the sounds of footsteps echoed again behind us, less distant this time. "We need to find a car or something to get out of here." I felt the heavy key in my pocket meet my fingers again, and it sent a rush of clarity through my hazy thoughts. Then, a sharp laugh pierced the air behind us. "You can't run forever," We ducked behind a pillar, fear gripping me like a vice. My pulse raced. Fear mixed with urgency, yet my mind felt caught up in a web of unanswered questions. Who was after us? What did they want with me? In moments of bedlam, questions got lost in the mix of survival. I stole a glance at Leo, and despite the chaos around us, I noticed a flicker of determination in his eyes. "We need to hold on to the key and those notes," he said, his tone steady and firm. "It's the only lead we have." With the ominous laughter echoing, I nodded, gripping the strap of the backpack. I felt resolute in my desire to figure out this bizarre mess, yet uncertainty hung over us like a storm cloud. There was still so much we didn't know, the truth hovering like a specter over us. As we crept toward an exit, adrenaline surged. I moved forward, pulling Leo along. We may not know the answers now, but we will. We have to. And with that, I set my sights on the future, resolved to unearth whatever it could reveal. But the crowd beyond still waited, shrouded in darkness and mystery, a reminder that not all shadows could be dispelled.